Okay, so this is definitely not one I had on my bingo card, but yes, in 2021, October of 2021, nearly 13 years after release, Fallout 3 just got a new update. And it's actually not a nothing update. For some of you, this is really bad news, and for some other people, this is actually pretty good news, as what happened was Fallout 3 on Steam just got updated seemingly by Bethesda, and we have the full list of patch notes right here. Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition has been updated and no longer installs Games for Windows Live dependencies. If Fallout 3 was previously installed on Steam, we suggest uninstalling and reinstalling the title. The title no longer requires Games for Windows Live and will now launch. So if you're sitting here wondering, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Fallout 3 for years had this issue where it required Games for Windows Live, that inherently not being the issue, but with the Windows 10 update, there was no longer Games for Windows Live. As such, Fallout 3 would launch, search for Games for Windows Live on your OS, being Windows, not find it, and then just immediately crash. So what this meant was, let's say you're just a regular person that goes on Steam, sees Fallout 3 for $8, like, hey, I'll try out the PC version finally. If you just tried to play that, you couldn't. It would immediately crash, which of course was immensely frustrating. You basically had to do homework and go through this entire process to disable Games for Windows Live. And it became this major thing in the Fallout community where you would just constantly see posts of people who just picked up Fallout 3, perhaps for the first time, tried to play it and then couldn't. And you had to kind of walk them through or lead them to a guide on how to fix this. So obviously not quite the ideal user experience. Some other storefronts like GOG actually fixed this on their own, but we just got a fix and update on Steam. And on one hand, this is great. So now if you buy Fallout 3 on Steam, I just did a fresh install of the game and I launch it, there's no problems. I could launch, play the game like nothing else is going on. Fallout 3 in general, still a bit of a buggy game, so you might run into crashing issues unrelated to this around autosaves and the like. That's a completely separate issue, and at the very least, you'll be able to get into and launch the game and start playing. And although that's great news, there's also some not so great news, as there are some of you who own Fallout 3, maybe actively play Fallout 3, and just had your game updated on Steam, and now you can't actually play it. Because if you were somebody who is playing a modded playthrough of Fallout 3, you probably downloaded Fallout Script Extender, otherwise known as FOES. You inevitably have heard of Skyrim Script Extender, New Vegas Script Extender, Fallout 4 Script Extender. Well, of course, there's one for Fallout 3 also. Fallout 3 Script Extender supports game version 1.7.03. The game was just updated to version 1.7.04. The way Script Extender works, when the exe like this is updated, it will break the Script Extender. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this with Skyrim and Fallout 4 Creation Club. The game would get updates, a ton of mods would break, and we'd have to wait a bit to get everything updated. And that basically just happened with Fallout 3. The big difference being, since Fallout 3 hasn't gotten an update in basically a decade, a lot of the modding scene, a lot of the developers behind this stuff have moved on. Literally aren't even a part of the modding scene of any Fallout game or any game anymore. So FOES doesn't work with the latest version. There's some workarounds. I'll have a few guides linked down below. You can prevent auto updates on Steam and just launch from the FOES exe directly. This will avoid the game updating. You could try and downgrade the game or find a different version of the exe online. This is kind of a hassle, but it is a workaround. Or if you don't want to deal with any of that, you could wait until FOES is updated. And I honestly have no idea. Could be updated in a week, could be months, or it just could never happen. It'll probably happen at some point because the modding community is absolutely amazing. But if you're currently in the middle of a Fallout 3 modded playthrough using Script Extender, which if you're playing in 2021, I think you probably would be. Some of the pretty good mods out there do require it, and I definitely recommend it in some of the videos I make. Or even if you're looking to get into Fallout 3, like this video inspired you, you're gonna have to do a little bit of legwork before you could actually get Script Extender and some of the cooler mods working, unfortunately. So definitely a bit of a double-edged sword, but yes, it is 2021 and Fallout 3 just got an update, which on one hand, it's one of those things that's really nice because Games for Windows Live is no longer an issue. Hopefully that is just behind the Fallout community now. It was definitely there for way too long. At the same time, if you like mods, if you like the Script Extender, this is definitely not super ideal, at least in the short term. And also, just as an aside, if you see this, you get pretty hyped, you saw the sale, you're like, hey, I'll pick up Fallout 3. It is still a great game. It doesn't actually just work depending on your setup. If you're getting over 60 FPS, you'll still run into physics issues with this game by default. Like you can see for me, if I jump, it's going way quicker. The physics in the game overall are going quicker because I technically have around 100 FPS in the background. So if you're not playing on a complete potato and you can get over 60 FPS, you'll still have to do a workaround for this. Either way, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Definitely a pretty interesting one. Not what I expected to be doing today. And funny enough, I actually have a somewhat similar video coming out tomorrow, but on a completely different game that Bethesda will be breaking. As always, again, I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys all later.